Hey everybody, welcome back to the Unsung Podcast. Today I have a very special guest that was sent to me by the amazing people at Sick Not Weak. Um, Keegan Dimitrijevic. Hope I said that right.
There's a
Um,
few different variants.
welcome to my little show here.
Thanks for having me on, man.
So yeah, well, like I said, we met through Sick Not Weak. I'm a huge wrestling fan. They said you got to talk to this guy. He's a pro wrestler with a great story. So here we are, me and Keegan, ready to make some waves.
It was made to happen.
So Keegan, double major in English and history and pursuing a master's degree. It's a battle with Asperger's and bipolar and a major mental health advocate. Been doing watching some of your old videos and just some of the things you said, even a few of them, one really hit me. But the first thing I noticed before I even knew about the Sick Knock Week connection was the hashtag on your wrestling gear back when you started. How did you meet Sick Not Weak? How did you find out about them? And we'll go from there.
So I think it was all made by accident, but in a weird paradox, I think it was meant to happen. So during COVID, which was a rough time for everybody, but if you suffer from any form of mental health, COVID could really take a toll on you due to its isolation and all the political and economic factors related to the situation. So I put out a video on Twitter, which was my main source of communication. I know it's X now. I still call it Twitter,
Yep.
but I put out a video just about some of my mental health struggles, and I wanted to see if anybody would relate or if anyone could understand the situations that I was going through at the time. And I put at the end of the post the hashtag sick not weak. And then little did I know, I think it was a few hours later, somebody by the name of Michael Landsberg ends up commenting back and says, "I'm on your team now." And then he followed me on Twitter. And I usually don't get big into the follow unfollow thing,
Yeah.
but that follow meant a lot to me. So that was where the relationship started. And he sent me a couple messages and said, track how you're feeling, track what your emotions are, use the Sichter scale, which I'm sure a lot of people, if you are a part of Sick Not Week, you know what that is. And he would text me every couple days or email me and ask how I was doing, just to keep checking. And then the relationship grew from there.
That's unreal. I met him also on Twitter. Like me, it's like always going to be Twitter. Like the Sky Dome was always going to be the Sky Dome. It's you can't change
No
it.
Rogers Center
No, no.
or whatever it's called
So
now.
I found this tweet last night. Actually, it was 4 years ago. I had put out a tweet talking about I was on a balcony downtown Calgary, and I had some pretty dark thoughts. I was about 9 pitchers of beer in, and I thought, um, if I leaped off here, would anybody even give a shit? I mean, I know I had my family love me, some close friends, but in my mind, I was sitting alone on the highway. And I tagged it and I said, I've never posted about this moment of weakness. Hashtag sick, not weak. 22 minutes later, there's a video from Michael Landsberg saying, dude, that was your biggest moment of strength of your life. And that hit me like a ton of
He's right.
bricks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it stuck with me in this guy who's, he doesn't care if you've got 2 million followers or 10, if he can relate to you like that. And just interviewing him last week, my God, I said to my girlfriend, it was just like a warm hug for 30 minutes. It sounds so lame, but I had so much anxiety. I was so nervous, like, holy shit, Michael Landsberg's coming on my show and trying to, but he's one of a kind. And I'm so fortunate to have that connection with him.
Absolutely. He to me possesses a sense of relatability that I think lacks a lot in public. There's again another sense of authenticity to him that it's very difficult to explain, but when you see him in person or even speak to him online, like how we are right now, there's this warmness to him that makes you feel like somebody actually has your back.
Yeah.
And the fact that even in my situation, when he would text me every day or two, just to be like, "How are you feeling? Are you hanging in there?" And that meant a lot, even from somebody from that stature. And I don't like looking at this from a perspective of hierarchy, but for somebody who has been so emotionally vulnerable in public to discuss his situations, like how he did with also with Stefan Richer on the show he did with him. That was absolutely crazy. And I think that was the one interview too that I saw with him where I went, okay, I think I can come out with this a little bit more. Because at that time, even in 2020, there was still a stigma. There's still a stigma now.
Yeah.
But the stigma back then was even worse. But like I've noticed by year, it increasingly gets better. So with him, he has that innate ability to relate to you, just like how he did with you. And I'm very happy even for you that you've been able to overcome that moment, because that moment of you on the balcony is your biggest strength, because you pulled the trigger in the best possible way,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
It does.
And
Yeah.
and that's why we're both here in this moment. It was meant to happen.
Well, another really cool thing too, watching one of your old videos, you made me realize something that I never have about myself. If I'm at a coffee shop or a restaurant, when the person at the counter, I'm just saying, "Hey, can I get a double double?" I'm always looking down. I can't look. I've never noticed that I can't look people in the eyes. And
Me
that,
too.
that hit me like with mental health and PTSD, like you're just asking for a coffee. And I've never realized I can't even look people directly in the eyes when it comes to that. So that was a big wake up call too.
Yeah, I've been called out many times for that, because like I've never done it to be rude. I just don't notice it. So there's been times where people have spoke to me and I'm speaking back to them and I'm like looking this way, and I just don't realize it.
Yeah.
Or something else that I do that has been called out is I will say something and then I'll repeat it again under my breath, but I don't notice it.
Yeah.
I just never have. It's something unbeknownst to me. So that's another thing too, is I always had my head down. I'm getting better at it. I'm trying to train myself to look at people more in the eye. And it's not because I'm not masculine enough or that I'm scared of the person I'm talking to. It's something innate that I just didn't know I was doing. I didn't know that when I was speaking to someone, I was looking down, or I was looking this way or looking this way or looking upward or whatever. But I also had, have you ever had that moment too where you accidentally lock eyes with somebody and it's just, even though you're talking to them, it's very awkward?
Yeah. Oh yeah. All the time.
I think that's maybe what I'm afraid of, is that weird eye to eye contact. It's just, it's too intimate for me.
Well,
So I think
you know
that's
what's funny?
probably the way I looked at it.
It's all in the mind, right? I mean, like me
Yeah.
and my daughter, we have a church we go to every Sunday, and it's the safest place in the world. But because of what happened to me in 1994, I still sit in the back row at church just because I can't have anyone behind me. When I go to a hockey game, there's people all around me. I go to wrestling. I've been to like so many live wrestling events. It doesn't phase me a bit there. But when I'm in like that small of a setting, if there's people sitting behind me, I still think someone's going to jump me. So it's,
Yeah, yeah, that's a situational reaction, and I've had stuff like that too, especially in smaller environments where I don't like people sitting behind me. So even in school, I don't like sitting in the front. I try to never sit in the front.
yeah,
I always try to be in the back, because it's that sense of security that I have, where I feel like there's not people looking over me. And like I don't like looking over other people, but I just like knowing that no one else is behind me. So I could totally relate to that. But that's not just a traumatic thing for me, but that's also a sense of security, where I feel like I'm more in control of myself if someone's not behind me.
Now, one other thing you mentioned in another video I watched, which really kind of hit me hard as well, and I never even thought about, um, stereotypes of mental health, like people thinking you're dangerous. It's kind of funny that I thought about when I was on dating sites and stuff for the last couple of years before I met my current girlfriend. I'd have my story on there and say, "Hey, listen, I'm recovering alcoholic and I've been fighting PTSD." And it's amazing how many people that would freak out, but it was me, right? It's like you got to know what you're eating at the restaurant before you order from the menu. So it was that you'd run into that a lot. Like people fear, they think you're crazy or you're gonna snap or go all.
Yeah, I've been through that. I've been through that more times than I can count. And I've tried in the last couple of years to see where the other person is coming from, because they haven't seen me in my experiences. So I try to always keep that in mind, but simultaneously it hurts, right? Because I don't want to be classified as this loose cannon, because if I have a bad day and I get upset, it's going to define that person's perception of me going forward.
For
And
sure.
that's always concerned me. But the people that have been around me know that my struggles with mental health are not going to always dictate my relationships with everybody. But it's a lot of people on the outside, which is why I always get asked all the time, how come you don't take any women out on dates? How come you don't go out with any women? And the reason I don't is for a couple of reasons. One, because I still have that fear, but two, because I'm at a point now where I'm nervous to take a risk. I shouldn't say nervous. I'm more apprehensive to take a risk because I feel like I've been going down a very good road recently, and I'm always nervous that if I commit to something big, something like that, or even making a new friend that I'm close with, that's going to get jeopardized. So that's why, and that's something I've kind of been picked at before, of like, why don't you go out with anybody or do this or do that? And it's not because of anybody else. It's because of myself. It's because I like, from a mental health standpoint, to have a sense of independence. You know, I kind of don't, I feel like sometimes I don't need to have everyone's company, because I've done it for so long of keeping my own company, even in my own mental health, that it's almost to a point where it doesn't phase me at this point.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
people can call
mean,
that
like,
a traumatic response, but it's just how I'm comfortable.
like myself, I showed you a picture of my dog before we came here, and she's
Yeah.
been my best friend for 3 years, and um, so she came into our life just before me and my ex-wife split up. But I'm like, that was the one thing I wasn't losing. Like, I need the dog, and I was okay. I used to think, if I don't ever meet someone, I'm okay till she goes. I have my dog, my daughter. She only went to the bathroom to have a drink of water. She, if I'm gone an hour, I came back. She's like, I've been gone for 3 weeks. I mean, you can't.
See, man, you have two girls.
Yeah,
I, I have two girls too. I got a Siamese and a Bengal, and they were my Valentines basically. So, you know, it's just different because like I can have my pets and I'm always okay around them. But it seems something with human beings, man, like where I just need to have my space. I never feel like I need my space from cats. I feel like sometimes I need my space from other human beings. So
yeah, that's
it's so
what
so
that's
yeah, so it's kind of funny how that animal and human relationship works with mental health too. And my cats can sense it. I know that sounds weird, but
oh yeah.
they know when something's gonna happen, and they're always around me all the time. Like my Bengal cat's headbutting my hand as I'm speaking right now. But they kind of know when something's happening, so they both will lay in the bed with me and not move until I get up, or like little things like that. So yeah, at least I feel loved by them.
Now, I watched the video that you posted 1 year ago today, and I noticed you posted a lot of small clips here and there talking about mental health, and then one of them you just captioned it. Maybe someday I'll share my whole story. So today, whatever you want to tell us about where your mental health started to go a different direction. Um,
Yeah,
Michael
yeah,
Landsberg said to me, he said, you know what? We don't choose mental health issues, they choose us.
that's
So if
very
you're comfortable
factual.
talking about it, you can tell us how that started, what a turning point was, or
Yeah, yeah. I can't really, I can't really label it on one thing that started it. I think even genetically, it was always there because, like there's been people, that I'm related to that have unfortunately suffered from various mental health conditions, not just one but many. It's just almost like a genetic trait of bad luck that can happen. Uh, but the one thing, and I'm going to relate to this, is I've seen a lot of people comparing mental illnesses with each other, which I fully don't understand because I don't think really one is more severe than the other because I think we all deal with our mental health in different ways.
Mhm.
So like I've seen people comparing the difference between like anxiety and depression, bipolar schizophrenia, all of them, and I'm like they're all different for everybody else. Not one person reacts the same way. So there might be some people who look at my experiences and go, oh, that's not so bad, or they might think it's the worst thing in the world. I can only tell it the way that it's happened for me, and I can only recount my experiences. So I just wanted to put that out there because I've seen a lot of people comparing mental health issues, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, but from my own vantage points, I don't think it's necessarily fair to compare them, especially if you're looking at it biologically and you're looking at it from a product of experience. It's very difficult to assess who's had it worse. And at the end of the day, we've all had it bad, just in different ways. So for me, I can't really pinpoint an exact moment where it started, but I remember as a kid, I got bullied really bad. Just like even when I started, I got bullied when I played hockey. I got bullied when I played baseball as a kid. I got bullied day to day in school. And it sounds not bad when you're a kid, but I kept everything in. I never said anything, and I'm still bad for that, for not saying anything. I just keep it in. There could be, various insults, physical situations, and they might not seem bad to somebody else, but they really affect me in different ways. And I think it comes from a product of being a child. And when you're a child, you're not always fully developed in your emotional range. So as a child, when you're constantly getting beat down, both physically and emotionally, I don't think you're going to react to it the same way, even when you're an adult. Because I still have what I call my trigger words. If somebody says something to me, it kind of gives me that traumatic instance of something that had happened to me before. And even as an adult, I still have a difficult time reacting to it.
Mhm.
And I know it sounds like I'm dancing around the question, but it's
No,
setting the foundation, because I remember as a kid, like I would get, physically hit or things like that, or I would get, beat up by a group of people. And it was that sense of vulnerability where I knew I couldn't defend myself, but I was never really sad for me. I was sad more when I saw it happening to somebody else. So somebody, like if a group of people beat me up, I would obviously feel bad about the situation for myself. But then if I saw it happening to somebody else, I would feel even worse, if that makes sense.
yeah.
So it was almost like a pity for somebody else, because, for me, it's like I felt like at a time I deserved it. Even if I didn't start it, it was that thing where I never I never necessarily felt valued. But don't get it twisted. There were a couple people in my family that were very supportive of me. That, like, during those times, for the people that knew, and they always tried to help me. But when there's a numbers game and there's so many people working against you instead of with you, your insecurity goes from here to here, and then eventually all the way down here.
Hmm. That's pretty powerful. One thing I noticed looking on your Twitter, and a post that really hit me was anxiety is the ore of sink or swim. That was
Yeah,
pretty powerful shit right
I
there.
created that one. I was just thinking about it. I don't know, because I had anxiety that day last week, and I was like, everyone tells me either sink or swim, but
You
what's
know
the or
what?
in that sink or swim?
When I was getting ready to interview our friend Michael Landsberg, I've done about 10 or 12 of these so far. I was just starting to get a bit of self-confidence, but man, I was nervous as shit. And we go on, we start our thing. I'm like, I'm gonna hit record, but I need a second. He's like, what the hell are you nervous about? And it was this, he's like, you have no reason to be nervous. And
It was like a little wake up call, right? Like,
yeah,
oh yeah,
yeah,
why am I nervous again? It's like
yeah.
that
But
self reassurance.
it's crazy. Like I did a lot of radio interviews over the years with my military charity, and I've talked to the Fox guys, CNN, but it's coming on here where I actually have to show my face. Man, that's a big step that I'm getting used to. But he was something else. He wants to come on and do a show where he interviews me. So I'm looking forward to that as well, but probably won't be as nervous now, like I said. But
Well, you've already broken the ice once, right? And
that's right. That's
and you
right.
know what his demeanor is going to be. You probably know what your demeanor is going to be. So there's that sense of familiarity there that's going to help you. And he's so easy. I know we talked about
Yeah.
this uh, before we came on, but he has such a good sense of relatability to people that he can bring the best out of you. And there's not many people that are able to do that.
So how long you been in the wrestling? Like how did that get started?
Like as a performer or just as a fan?
As a performer, like
So
how
as a
did
performer, so I started training in 2023. mid to late 2023, and then I still train now. The training never stops. Yeah, so about late 2023.
And then Seth Rollins, like what the hell? How did that? You've actually trained in the ring with Seth freaking Rollins?
Yeah, he had the availability to be at the school, and I signed up 2 years prior, just to make sure I'd get in. And I got an email a week or two later saying that I got in and I'd see them in 2023.
It's crazy.
And
Did he ever
yeah,
bring you
and
those
then
big red boots by?
no, I mean, I wish I could say yes, but I wish I saw them because those when I saw him wear those things one day on TV, I was like, man, all you're missing is the Super Mario jumping sounds and the jumping animations. It's like all you're missing, and it would be absolutely perfect. No, I've never seen them, but I'm sure they would be a sight to behold.
Now I've watched. They had quite a few matches I've been watching on there as well, and I noticed in some you get a lot of boos and playing up the heel card, and then in a couple others the people are cheering you like crazy. That's there. Do you prefer the heel or do you prefer the face?
Heel, heel, because for me, I'm not an angry person until there's a reason for me to be angry. And I feel like with my mental health, it's been beaten down so much for so many years that it's a great way for me to let it all out. And that's not just physically in the ring, but also to show people that you're the ones that have stepped on me and this is what you get in return. You make the monster, and sometimes you have to become a bigger monster to get rid of all the other monsters of the world. But I feel like I've done it for the right reasons. I feel like sometimes you have to use anger to get what you want, and if they boo me, then there's nothing else I can do about that. If you hate me, you hate me. If you love me, you love me. I don't care either way because I'm still breathing. And if that bothers you, then come do something about it.
Nice. Now with the your a lot of your mental health posts and that kind of thing as well. Do you I kind of try and stay away from the comments on YouTube or pretty
Yeah.
much anywhere. How do you react to trolls? You must get some of them on there.
I mean, if you're talking to teenage me, it would bother me.
Yeah.
Now, not really. I mean, unless if it gets very personal, but there's so much negativity on social media that I think this is something in the mental health world too. When you're around so much negativity, you kind of become numb to it. And there's a few reasons. One, a lot of these people who say this, it's not really what they mean. They're
Hmm.
looking for the clout. They're looking for attention. They're looking for more Twitter followers. They're looking, for more likes on their posts. They're looking for more, views, things like that. So anybody can say whatever they want, and that's the liberty is people have the ability to speak freely. I have the ability to either respond or ignore it, and that's just the way it goes. I can't control what everybody's going to say, but I can control how I'm going to react to it. And even if I'm in a bad mood, that's when I really pick to not respond because I don't think that a verbal confrontation online is really going to solve anything
No.
at the end of the day. But sometimes the best response is no response, depending on, again, it's circumstantial, but a lot of times when you're dealing with, people in the dirt, and what I mean by that is, people who are looking for dirt to dig up, then that's just something that I think if you're online, you just have to avoid because then it's almost to the point you're becoming what you're criticizing.
Yeah.
So if I start taking part in arguing with somebody over something that they're already criticizing or what they are, I'm demeaning myself on top of that. And then they're also demeaning themselves too, because now we're getting into an argument over something at the end of the day that really doesn't matter. So
Bummer.
really, no. I mean, unless if it's very personal, like if somebody starts making fun of, somebody's mental health issues, then it's like I might say something and be like, "Hey, man, you got to look at this from a different perspective." But if they're making fun of mine, they can say whatever they want. They're not me. Nobody is Keegan at the end of the day. So they can't really put their shoe, their foot in a shoe that doesn't fit.
You know what, man? I have a 10-year-old daughter, and when she looks at me, because I've dropped over 150 pounds the last 5 years, but We did a five
Congratulations.
kilometer race together, and it all started from her just wanting to race me home, and I couldn't because of my leg injuries and being almost 400 pounds. But when she looks at me and says, Dad, I'm so proud of you. That's my noise canceling headphones that every single one of those
Yeah.
controls,
Yeah.
right?
Well, when
Like,
it means something from the right person, right?
yeah.
So like in English, it's like there's a perspective of ethos, which is the credibility of an individual or a credibility of an individual at a certain place. And so from hearing that from your daughter, it's going to mean a lot more than pretty much anybody else. So if someone like that says, "Hey, Dad, I'm proud of you. Congratulations," that's going to cancel out anything else that any other troll on the internet is ever going to say, because they might go up to you and be like, "Oh, you're 400 pounds, so what, deal with it." Or "You lost that weight, okay, I could lose that too." But they don't they've never been in a circumstantial situation like yours.
Well,
But
and
well, exactly,
for
yeah.
yeah, for you, I know you're a huge Kurt Angle fan. I watched a clip of
Yeah.
him talking about one of your matches. That must have been the coolest shit ever. Like him here to hear Kurt Angle say that was a great match. Like for me, if that'd be echoing in my head every time I step in a ring.
Yeah, I mean Kurt's my hero. He always has been since I was a kid. But I always try to keep a level head on things like that,
Hmm.
because I still have so much work to do as a performer. You never stop training, and you always need to get better, which is why I'm still training now and trying to get as best as I can get. So when I do eventually wrestle another match, I'm where I physically want to be. And I've had some physical problems the last while too, so I've been trying to work around that. But I've been very grateful for the people I've been able to train with. And so like a shout out to Josh Alexander, to Scott Demore, to Dan Pisano, aka El Reverso, Nate Matson, who's a huge indie veteran in the United States and has worked with the likes of Nigel McGuinness and Seth Rollins, and a lot of guys like that, the Motor City Machine Guns. Those guys over the last while have been helping me so much to get better as an in-ring performer, to get to a level that I eventually aspire to be at. So I just wanted to give them a quick shout out too. But yeah, I mean, it means a lot from somebody like Kurt to say something like that, to say, "Hey man, like that was a really good match. Like, but here's the points where you can improve, and here's what you're going at." So you get the strengths and the weaknesses, and how
Yeah,
can we make every weakness a strength? Like for me, a weakness, is I'm not a good jumper. I've never have been a good jumper, so that's something I've had to work on, and that's also because I'm 5'9", but 230 pounds. So you got to work with what you're given. So I'm trying my best to make stuff like that work. But yeah, I mean, from him, that means the absolute world, because I've looked up to him ever since I was 5 years old.
nice. For me, it's my childhood wrestling hero was Bret Hart. Um,
That's a great one too.
so when I almost died, I made this bucket list of shit I wanted to do, and there was one thing left on it was meet Bret Hart. And I'm like, well, hell, I live in Calgary. It shouldn't be that hard. And so I put out a tweet saying, here's my bucket list. Here's the one thing left on it. And the local radio station guy on CJ92, everybody was tweeting it to him because they know they're buddies, right?
Yeah.
So I open up my inbox about a month later, and I have this video from Bret Hart saying that when all the COVID shit is over, we're gonna go to a game. And I got to spend 3 hours with the dude. The Iron Sheik live tweeted him a chirp while I'm at the game with him, so I read it to him live. And I've been watching wrestling since I was 10, and I'm almost 50. So it's probably one of the coolest nights of my life, aside from when my daughter was born. He was just so real. And one of my questions later is going to come from a question I asked him, but we'll save that till we're almost done.
Yeah.
Um, he was just, you think about meeting your people you looked up to, and then they're so cool in person. It's a bit surreal.
Yeah. Yeah.
How long
Absolutely.
how long have you been watching wrestling? Like when did you start to get into that?
This is gonna sound like hyperbole, but probably when I was around 2. And I mean that legitimately. Ask anybody that knows me, because I don't remember the first match I ever watched, but the closest thing I can remember it to is being Rey Mysterio versus Kurt Angle from SummerSlam 2002. And I don't think I watched it when I was 1, but it had to have been pretty close because I remember as a young kid watching Brock Lesnar's 2002 to 2004 run. I remember watching that live when I was really little. So it had to have been at some point between that time. But I remember it all. There's other things I can't remember, but I can remember watching that when I'm 2 and 3 years old, watching, Brock Lesnar save Rey Mysterio from a beatdown from A-Train. I could just somehow remember that, and I don't know how. But yeah, I would say probably that was the start. And it wasn't just WWE either. I watched TNA, I watched New Japan, All Japan, Noah. WCW and ECW weren't live when I was watching, but I had every DVD, every tape I could possibly find, and I would watch those tapes and DVDs over and over. They weren't just a one shot. I got my use out of every single DVD.
Man, I remember maybe when I was 11 years old, so like 1980, early 1980s. Um, my father had become friends with Mad Dog, or Sailor White was his name. Sailor White, the old Calgary wrestling guy. So he took me and my brother to a live wrestling event in Ottawa, and he's like, "Do you guys want to come backstage and meet the guys?" And we're like, "Yeah, we do." So we go backstage, and like Sid Vicious is just sitting down laughing with the Macho Man, or like the Junkyard Dog and Nikolai Volkov are like laughing about something. Like, what's going on? Why are they talking to each other? They hate each other. What's going It was my first kind of like finding out Santa Claus was scripted kind of deal. That was
Yeah, like what world am I in right now,
yeah.
right?
What's the coolest event you've ever been to live, as far as like most
Whew.
memorable match to watch live?
My favorite match to watch live. Hmm. That's tough. Because I haven't been to a bunch of WWE shows, but I have been to indie shows where I've seen some really good matches. There was one that Pete Dunne did in my hometown of Windsor. He wrestled a hometown boy by the name of Aiden Prince, who is still wrestling today. I don't know if the match is on YouTube. I don't know if it's available anymore, but I remember watching that match live. It was called Border City Wrestling Excellence. It was in 2017. And I remember watching that live, and it was like a 15-minute match, I want to say. And these guys tore the house down. Like they completely tore the house down. And I'm sitting there, I think I was like 15 or 16 at the time. And I'm like, man, I would kill to do this. And then right after the match, I actually met Pete Dunne. So that was kind of a little cherry on top. He signed me a British strong style shirt. And that match to me was sentimental because I just watched a Windsor boy go up against the UK champion. This is when Pete Dunne was in his United Kingdom title run, and they had Pete Dunne, against him for such a long amount of time that I went, oh my god, I thought Aiden Prince could win this match. So I was thinking a guy from Windsor, which is where I'm from, can do this, then I can do this, or I can at least try to do this. So I'd say that match from a sentimental perspective. But I did see a match I got to go to SmackDown in Des Moines, Iowa in 2023. And there was a match between Santos Escobar and Mustafa Ali. And it was a really good match, really, really good match. And I saw that and I went, man, athletically, I can't do what these guys can do. So it was kind of a little demeaning in that way. But also I was like, if only I could ever have the chance to even wrestle on a SmackDown,
Yeah.
that would be super cool. And like WWE for me, I would love to do it. At some point if I ever get good enough to do it. But I was always a SmackDown kid when I was younger. So if I had the chance, I don't care if I never wrestle, anywhere else, like a Raw or wherever. But if I got to wrestle on one SmackDown, I think that would be kind of a little cherry on top.
Unreal. For me, it was I got to go to The Rock versus Hogan at the Skydome. That's probably the
Yeah.
loudest thing. I've been to Motorhead front row, and that wrestling match was the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like you could feel the rumble of the crowd just going through your whole body. I can't imagine what those guys in the ring felt, but that was the
Yeah.
coolest thing I've seen live. And then second coolest, I don't know, it's pretty close, but when Evolution turned on Randy Orton in London, Ontario,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
and
watching that live with Jack Tunney sitting next to me. It was
wow.
yeah. So that was my two biggest wrestling moments live.
I remember the main event of that night was the SummerSlam '04 rematch for the World Heavyweight title.
Yeah.
And that match, I'm not just talking about the SummerSlam one, but the one on Raw, that was at the John Labatt Center, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So that main event was absolutely brilliant. That's one of my favorite Raw matches of all time. Yeah, and then when they turned on him, that was a huge pop. But the match that preceded it before was also amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was another great match that I wish I could have saw live. But that was in '04, so I was like, three maybe. I think I
Oh
was
my
three at the
goodness.
time. Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, I was 3 years old in 2004. So, but yeah, that I would have killed to have been at a few of those shows like Rock and Hogan, Mania 18. That's also a match that I saw as a kid where I heard the crowd, and I didn't know anything about psychology at this point as a kid watching wrestling, but I was like, if I'm out there and they're like that, oh, this will be good. Like it's kind of like one of those things like this where you're like, ooh, like if only I could experience that.
Yeah.
And
Well, that
if I
night
could
as
have
well,
experienced
that
that,
I was pretty sick. I had a pretty bad flu, and so Ric Flair and The Undertaker were fighting.
yep.
And if you imagine a baseball game, we're in the first row behind where first base would be, like right along the edge of the ring. And back then our ticket was under $100, which I don't want to think about what it'd be now for WrestleMania. But so Ric
Oof.
Flair and The Undertaker start coming out of the ring, and all of a sudden they're like literally 2 feet away from us, slinging fists at each other. And when I watch the old WrestleMania now on Netflix, everything is on there now. I'm pretty sure I could see myself just passed out, just missing it all. So I was so sick.
you
I'm like,
you literally have the two greatest performers in the history of wrestling,
yeah,
just like sitting right there and chucking soup bones. Like I couldn't imagine having to be there for that. That match too is another one that I saw when I was really younger, and I was awed by it.
yeah,
Like to me, that's the most underrated WrestleMania match of all time. Is that match? I thought it was so good. I
yeah,
love the story that led up to it, where like Flair was the old gunfighter, didn't really want to fight anymore, but Taker just pushed him past the limit to do it, by beating up David, and then they did the Arn Anderson spot with the spine buster, and the crowd popped for that too. I remember
yeah,
seeing that when I watched the match for the first time, and like that crowd legit. I don't know if you did, but that crowd legitimately thought they had him,
yeah.
and so that was another match too that I just absolutely enjoy.
So, couple more questions for here. There's a pretty big
Yeah,
stigma with wrestling and dark side, and so many wrestlers struggle with mental health.
yeah.
And here you are, training to get there. With your state of mind and your thoughts on mental health, I could really, if you do make it there, see you being a lighthouse for these people. You've got, oh, look at that.
I
That's
don't know. Can you guys see it on there on the screen? But yeah,
yeah, yeah, we
yeah,
sure can. That's pretty poetic right there. So,
yeah.
if there's anybody out there watching this that's struggling or going through shit or feeling like they're alone, what's one thing you want to leave them with from our talk here?
Stay true to who you are. Always, always stay true. Don't conform to what other people want you to be, because you're never, in my opinion, going to live a fulfilling life if you're trying to be somebody else for somebody else, because that somebody else would not be somebody else for you. And that's one thing I've learned, and that's one of the reasons I always aspire to keep my ring name as my name, as my first name. Like if we can't use Dimitrijevic for marketing purposes, I totally understand that. But I always want to keep my first name as my ring name, because I think for me it has very sentimental value. And I can't really imagine myself being anybody else under any other name. I would feel like a fraud if I did so. I feel like I have to be Keegan. So if I could respond to you, if you're listening to this, is to always be who you are. And if you want to use a different name for things, absolutely go for it. Um, I like staying to my name because my name means a lot to me, especially for familial reasons. But always be who you are. Embrace it. You were given the gifts that you were given for a specific reason, for other reasons that you may not know going forward. But the gifts that you have are the gifts that you have, and we just have to make the best of them. So if you are struggling, never worry about what people think. And I know that sounds easier, to say than to actually do. However, if you don't believe what everybody thinks about you negatively, your confidence will go up. And that's something I've learned the hard way many times. My confidence is still not great, but it increased once I realized if I get up in the morning and I go work out and I keep my foot on the gas, that continuous motion of life that keeps going forward will help you get over things in the future. So just keep going. Don't try to sulk in your emotions. You can still have your emotions, but use them as fuel to continue going forward.
Unreal, man. That's unreal.
It's
So,
I can only speak from my experiences. Like,
oh,
this
for
is what's
sure.
helped me.
Yeah.
So like if it's not going to help somebody else, I'm sorry, but if it does help you, that's the best that we can do. And I love it, man, because sometimes I get messages from people that I don't even know, and they tell me like, oh, like your honesty has helped me, with my mental health issues, and that makes me feel good because I'm not a character. I don't play a character. Uh, for people that do, that's an extra level of talent that they have. But I can only be me, and I always want to do mental health stuff in wrestling, and it's not a character, but I do call myself the Reformation because of that, because I think pro wrestling in a lot of ways with mental health needs reform. And if I can be one to help, raise a flag and carry that banner, I will do everything I can, and I'll die on my shield doing it.
Unreal, man. That's epic. I got one last question for you.
Yeah.
Um, when I got to go to that hockey game I mentioned with Bret Hart, I made him a bet that I could ask him one question. Excuse me, sorry.
No
That I could
worries.
ask him one question he's never been asked in every interview he's ever done, and I stumped him. So,
All right.
100 meters, you're at the start of a 100-meter dash. There's a basket of pigeons, and you got to see how many you can carry the full 100 meters. At the end of the 100 meters, how many do you think you still have in your arms?
That's tough. That's tough. 100 meters doesn't sound that long, but you have the pigeons in a basket. You're carrying them. I'm going to guess they leave even before you start running.
I'm thinking, well, Bret Hart said he could probably carry two by the legs.
Yeah.
At the end of the 100 meters, I had the paramedic that saved my life. She said 7. She's a farm girl. She just grabbed them all by their heels upside down. But that's where the wrestling with pigeons thing came from with the sick, not weak people.
Just an insider thing that keeps going, eh?
It is, I don't know. It's my little crazy question at the end of some serious shit. But
Yeah. So what's the right answer if there is
well, there
one?
is no right answer. It's just how many
Oh,
do you
okay.
think you could carry 100 meters and still have at the end of the race?
I feel like they'd somehow get away from me before I even start running.
No, you're going with 0? It's 0?
I'm going with 0.
Okay. All right. Fair answer.
Big fat 0. 0. Is that what Penta does now? Yeah.
Well, man, it was an honor talking to you. You've watching some of your old videos with the eye contact thing and just a few things I'm going to
Yeah.
personally try and work on myself. That helped me notice. So thank you for that. And
Absolutely, man.
you're wise,
Yeah.
man. You've got some wise words, and I no doubt we may see you somewhere one of these days, and I'll be like Michael Landsberg said, I'm on your team too. So
Thank you, man.
maybe he's
Yeah.
maybe I can
Yeah.
come out of retirement. I can do some 90-minute boxing sessions. I don't know. I got
Yeah, do some sparring or yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, for anything in life, never say never. Like I never thought I'd even make it this far. Truthfully, I thought I'd be gone a long time ago, and I know people will say, "Well, you're young, why do you think that?" But to a lot of experiences I've had, I'm surprised that I'm still here in a lot of ways. With the suicide attempts I've made and things like that. I'm very surprised I'm still here. But I'm grateful that I'm here. And if that's something that somebody can relate to, that makes my heart grow. So, I'm like the Grinch, like I have my heart kind of this big, and then when I see people's success stories, it just grows and grows and grows. So, I'm always trying to cheer other people on too. Like there's even a lot of people at my university that I go there with, and they keep everything in, but then they saw like stuff I would be doing online with mental health. So then they would like ask me if it's okay to talk to me. And I'm like, I'm no therapist by any stretch of the imagination. And that's not what I aspire to be. But if I can do something to help somebody, even if it's just either listen to them or tell them like, hey, like here's my number, or here's my social media handle. You want to text me whenever you want, go ahead. If I can even do that for you, that means the world.
For sure. Um, as I do in all my videos, I'll put some resources there for anybody that's struggling that wants to reach out for professional help. I'm not a therapist either, but sometimes I just try and relate my shit. I've had dark days, and but I always tell people that message me like that too. I'm like, listen, I'm not a therapist. I'll tell you what worked for me. It might not work for you, but just reach out if it's to anybody if you're out there struggling. But it was an honor talking to you. And if anybody wants to follow along with your journey, I'll fire your social media and your Twitter up in the description and
Yeah.
go from there.
Also, follow your account too.
Oh, well,
On
yeah,
Twitter. I'll put it up too, because I didn't know, and sometimes I'm not always skeptical to do interviews,
yeah,
but because of my schedule right now with university, it's so crazy that I just really it's very hard to find time, which is why if someone's gonna do one with me, I have to do it later in the night, like I am right now. But I like doing it now, and I never used to because I was never a very social kid. But now that I have something to relate to with people, it's kind of making me come out of my shell a bit more than usual. But for your handle, I'll put that up too. And best of luck with the channel going forward.
perfect. Amanda, thanks for coming on with me, and we'll be uh, we'll be tracking your progress on here for sure.
Thank you, man.
All right, take it easy.